Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Enlightenment Through Understanding and Wisdom with your host, Jacob Strong. How's everybody doing today? Well, today is June 1st. It is Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. And the whole month of June is PTSD and CPTSD Awareness Month. It's also Men's Health Awareness Month. I can't really speak on that as far as I'm not a doctor, and it's not really what our show's about, but it's a few other things this month that doesn't really pertain to this show. So instead, we're going to focus on PTSD and CPTSD, and of course, today being Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day for the month of June. So I was poring over my psychology notes, and there was a Russian psychologist in the 1800s. He was a social and political and spiritual landscaper. As far as he was noticing stuff that was to come, which I think was kind of interesting, because even though he was in Russia, born and raised, and then of course died in Russia as well, um, he noted something that doesn't really pertain to the Russian government, but he's seen in the future would come. So let me kind of dive in and explain. He wrote an article and he said, tolerance will reach such a high level that intelligent people will be banned from thinking so as not to offend the imbeciles. Now, Russia has always been a communist country as far as they're very suppressive of anyone who doesn't fall in line with their structure, with their belief system. But if you notice, he said tolerance will reach such a high level that intelligent people will be banned from thinking. He didn't say that they would be banned from speaking out. He said that they will be banned from thinking. And what does that mean? What does that mean when he states that our thinking will be changed, will be banned, our thought process will be suppressed? Again, it's one thing to think something. It's another thing to act on those thoughts. Excuse me. And it's another, and then of course it's another thing to then just voice them. So, of course, to even voice, like in Russia, that you are, gay or lesbian or whatever, it is punishable by death. As far as I know, it's still punishable even by death, to even voice something like that. So that's, again, different than thinking. It's one thing to think something, it's another thing to voice it, and it's another thing to act on it. And so when you look at this country and you reflect, okay, what about this country? How does it look in this country? The more that we tolerate someone thinking and it's just their behavior, and maybe as a narcissist they're not so bad because other people can communicate with them, or other people, can be happy around them. Well, the problem with that thinking is they are suppressing the empaths. They are suppressing the enlightened individuals from even thinking, and then of course thinking, which then leads to speaking out, which then leads to actions um, against it, in the name of tolerance, in the name of, well, you just have to accept people for their differences. The problem is the more that we tolerate, the more trauma that we will have to undo in our children, the more trauma we will have to overcome in our children because of narcissistic abuse. And the best way that I can describe that is if you have a plant and you starve it for water, you will kill it. If you starve it for water, if you thirst it for water, to the point of death each time, it ages faster, it becomes sickly looking. So we understand that plants and animals have a basic need for certain things, and children have a basic need for certain things, certain emotions, um, certain actions, and when you deprive them of that, they age quicker. They become more um, vulnerable. They become more. Um, some of them become more likely to repeat what they are witnessing, what they are seeing with um, with other individuals. A narcissistic parent that raises a child, that child's the outcome, of course, is either become narcissistic or become an empath. And so, with that being said, that child, has a fork in the road that it has to, that it has to decide what it's going to become. And if it becomes an empath, it has more likelihood of finding a narcissistic spouse, right? Someone who's very verbally or mentally or physically abusive to them, as I did with my ex-wife. Or they, become an abuser themselves and turn around and abuse someone else, a child, and then of course, generation upon generation of narcissistic abuse is what happens. So, um, with that being said, even even certain individuals, certain enlightened individuals, can see what's coming down the turnpike. Now, I don't live in Russia. I can't speak um, to everything that goes on over there. But here's what I can say. What is the lesser of two evils, if that's the word you want to use, in governments? One who's openly communist, like Russia, and says, "Hey, we believe in this, this, and this, so you can either live here and and live under our rules, or you can move out." Or we can live in this country in the US, which proclaims on the outside to be open, proclaims on the outside that that they do not oppress their citizens. Yet my case is a prime example of the oppression of this country. You can Google my name and you'll find that the government has suppressed all of the motions that I have filed. They have suppressed all the information. They suppressed that at my trial, their own witnesses, the FBI agents, testified that people in my community said that my ex-wife is not a good person. They suppressed all this knowledge to hide the truth. And then, of course, they, now, proclaiming victory, right? Victory over destroying a citizen, over destroying me, who I've always been a for the most part, a law-abiding citizen. Aside from some traffic tickets, I've never done anything else. So you can see how corrupt the system is when they want to suppress information and then lie about it. So again, back to the same question, which is the lesser of the two evils? Well, actually Russia, because at least ways, if you go there and you choose to move there, you know what you are getting into. You come to this country because you think it's free. You come to this country because you think that they protect their citizens, that they're the most humanitarian country in the world. But it's all a sham. It's all a lie. So, with that being said, it creates more trauma for its victims to have to overcome. Why in this country do we have the biggest drug problems? Why in this country do we have uh, the most mental illness in this country? Well, when you're promoting narcissism and you're saying that that's the new norm, you're enabling those individuals to then torment and abuse their victims, not only through the legal system, but one-on-one, when you have to co-parent with a narcissist. And so with that being said, we've now got new terms. In my early 20s, I always heard of post-traumatic stress disorder. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So when you then fast forward 20 years later to now, this day and age, to this decade, we now have CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So, where did the complex come from? That's something that was added. That's something that didn't exist years ago. It's complex because we weren't addressing what narcissism is doing to people. Now we can understand and realize that narcissism is creating a whole slew of victims. And of course the government is trying to suppress that information. They're trying to, say that no, there's no such thing as that. After at sentencing, the prosecutor in my case said that, well, because I was trying to get back with my ex, that's the only reason that they followed through with pursuing international parental kidnapping conviction. Yeah, because you don't realize, even when you're going through the divorce and you have all these people stepping up for the narcissist, you then think, maybe I am in the wrong, especially as an empath. You then believe maybe there is something wrong with me. And that's what I was going through with my divorce, is my ex-wife had, now I understand she has a flying monkey. She has someone who is enabling her to continue her abuse through the legal system. She has an attorney that stepped up. Instead of saying, no, I'm not going to help you try and manipulate your ex-husband and try and manipulate the courts into giving you a bunch of money when you were the one that moved out because God told you to marry your ex-husband. And, instead of the lawyer then stepping up and saying, no, I'm not going to participate in your games. The lawyer was just like, sure, I'll step right in and, help you manipulate the system and steal everything from, your current husband. And so, I didn't understand that. I didn't realize that. So I just viewed it as maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe I was at fault in the relationship. Well, now that I have a clear head and now that I am no longer being controlled and manipulated by that psychopath, by that very narcissistic psychopath, now I can realize that no, it was never me because I was the only one going to counseling. I was the only one going to marriage counseling. My ex stopped going to marriage counseling. And so it's like, why? Because I started talking too much about what was going on in the marriage. And of course, she didn't like that because that wasn't painting her in a good light. And so she didn't want to go anymore. And so now I can sit back and realize, okay, there is absolutely no hope for a narcissist. The only hope that a narcissist has is to become aware of their narcissism. And what that means is they can't change because it's how they're wired. It's their mindset. They can't change. But if they become aware, then they no longer seek a spouse to manipulate. What they then seek is a slam bam thank you ma'am. They then just seek someone that they can, have a quickie with to just get their gratification, get their notch under their belt, etc. And they're open about it and they're truthful about it because at that point, they're no longer seeking a relationship. They're no longer seeking long-term loving, family life. They are seeking instant gratification. And so if we can then train the empaths to not train, but if we can then show the empaths that, hey, this is what those individuals seek. So as an empath, as someone who is looking to have a family, looking to build a family, looking for love and affection, and more than just transactional relationships, then they are aware that they're not going to start that with a narc, right? So with that being said, this is, of course, then what we need to get the government to address. We need to get the government to see what they are doing, to see that we are dealing in an age of CPTSD. We are no longer dealing in just PTSD. We are dealing in a very complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And it takes more than just well, that person said this to then convict someone of a crime when I didn't even commit a crime. Why? Because my ex-wife was not even following the parenting plan herself. She was ordered to seek anger management. She was ordered all of these things to do, and she didn't do one of them. And so it's like, so who broke the um, the parental agreement first? Well, she did. Now you just want to hold me accountable and responsible because she broke it first? It's kind of like, again, we're back to this, we're back to square one. If someone pulls a gun on me, well, of course I'm going to shoot them. It's called reaction. It's a reaction. When you're driving down the road and you see a deer in the road, you're going to swerve. If your reflexes are quick enough, you're going to look into the other lane and see if you can safely swerve into the other lane. Nonetheless, if you don't see a motorcycle that's coming in the other lane, you might just hit them. It wasn't intentional. You did have to avoid the deer. You didn't see them. It was an accident. And so that's what we are dealing with when we're dealing with CPTSD is, we're seeking what's best for our child. We're seeking what's best for our loved ones when we're dealing with a narcissist. And the courts need to wake up and start enforcing this, start doing psych evals. And because the bottom line is if you're going to stop us from thinking, just so that you don't have to offend imbeciles, as Fyodor Dostoevsky, I probably botched that name up really good, as he said, and so that's the era that we are at, and the stage we are at in life is we need to wake the system up. And of course, June 1st being Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day, speak up. It's time for everybody to start speaking up. It's time for us to start going to legislation, start speaking up and saying, no, this is wrong. This is corruption. That's what this is. To use the system to destroy our own citizens' lives when they are trying to bring awareness, they're trying to protect a loved one from an abuser. So anyway, so that's my snippet. That's my show for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. I appreciate you all for listening to my show and raising awareness. And I just ask that you share it. Share it on your Facebook. Share it on your business website. Share it wherever you can. Because if we don't start speaking up, then this country is going to fall, and its citizens are going to fall first. And we're running out of time. So we need to speak up so that we can address this, so that we can stop the abuse and neglect and move forward with a truly humanitarian country, with a truly better for societal country, not just better for whoever wants to climb the political ladder, but better for everyone as a whole. So anyway, I appreciate y'all's input. I hope that y'all can visit my website. My website is www, it's three W's, etuw.org. And of course my Facebook, Jacob Strong. And so I just ask for you guys' help. I ask that you help me get the word out. All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful June 1st. And it's a beautiful day out here in Billings, Montana today. So we'll talk to you next time. Have a great day.